Personally, I quite like Bullet Soul. That's despite the fact it doesn't do much new or original, is neither the deepest nor the most refined experience around, and honestly it can feel a bit by the numbers at times. However, it's also flashy and fun for when you feel like playing something a bit lighter and less involved, and while I wouldn't be able to refute anyone who accused it of indulging in a bit of style over substance, I also don't think that's necessarily an out and out insult either. It probably does have more style than substance, but hey, style's not always that easy to come by. Now, when you look at footage of Bullet Soul, I think a lot of shmup fans will probably be instantly wowed, thinking, yes, this is the sort of thing I've been looking for. The game is bright and brash with bullets, enemies and explosions aplenty, and it's even got what look like some cool characters and interesting designs as its key art. Starting the game all feels pretty good too. The player ships control smoothly, you're very quickly super powerful, and your first few runs of Bullet Soul are likely to see you grinning ear to ear as you dispatch wave after wave of enemies in a whirlwind of chaos and colour. However, the more you play, the more the game's limitations start to come to light. For a start, the game is, for the most part, too easy, something not helped by the baffling absence of a difficulty select. Now, it's not brain dead easy, at least not after stage 3, but in a genre almost defined by its balls to the wall difficulty, Bullet Soul is definitely on the very gentle side of things. And the thing is, once you've got to grips with the basic mechanics and start looking about for a bit more depth, you'll quickly realise there's not really all that much to find. The Infinite Burst revision, which is included here if you pick up the physical, or can be bought separately from the original game on the eShop, it does address this and is a distinct improvement, but it doesn't fix all the issues, and whichever version you play, Bullet Soul never really quite elevates itself out of the mid to decent tier. The game is, on the surface level, a danmaku, with thick curtains of bullets and player ships generally firing wider shots and moving faster with one button, and delivering a more focused shot with slower movement with another. At the same time, however, it rarely feels or plays like a danmaku due to the game's main mechanic, the titular Bullet Soul system, which sees any enemy shots remaining on screen when that enemy's killed turned into greyed out bullet souls, which the player can then scoop up as bonuses. This is a pretty cool mechanic, but unfortunately for the most part, you can dispatch enemies so quickly and easily as they come in from the top of the screen that even just sitting in the centre of the field and holding fire can often be enough to see you soaking up bullet souls with little effort, rather than having to actually dodge your way through much live fire. In contrast to this, there are a few occasional moments in the game where enemies do come in from highly unexpected positions and do so suddenly and with no indication of what's happening. Instead of raising the challenge level, however, these moments feel random and unfairly punishing when first encountered, before becoming manageable as you learn the game. I'm not sure this is really particularly good design though, as they're not even really difficulty spikes so much as frustrating unsignalled insta-deaths that are out of keeping with the level design of the rest of the game. And that level design is probably Bullet Soul's weakest point. It simply doesn't feel like there are many terribly distinct phases to the game. There are few notable set pieces or memorable moments. There's little escalation as you progress and no sense of going on a journey. You just blast your way through wave after wave of enemies in a sci-fi setting with little distinguishing one from the next. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a certain easy cathartic pleasure to be found in doing this, and I have found myself going back to the game frequently, and that's despite having already played it a fair amount on Steam, and I undoubtedly have fun every time. But it is the sort of soda slurping and popcorn munching enjoyment you get from watching a big silly blockbuster and allowing your brain to turn off for an hour or two, which, again, don't get me wrong, is 100% a valid form of entertainment, just not one that you necessarily have much deep-seated respect for. Now, as mentioned, there is a revision of the game included here if you buy the physical package called Bullet Soul Infinite Burst. That's the headline at least. In fact, there are several revisions in different ways to play across both versions, and in terms of content on offer, the full set here has a lot to unpack. The original game offers 3 ships and sees bullet souls used to increase a points multiplier, and is in many ways the base all the other models are built on. It comes with both a caravan mode and what Bullet Soul calls a bancho mode, which is in effect a combination of stage select and a high score contest based on each single stage. Further to this, there's also a version B Arrange featuring a fourth and massively OP playable ship, and that is just the original Bullet Soul. In Infinite Burst, which loads in from a separate icon on the home screen, you again have several different modes, with Burst mode being the main event, and one that mixes up the gameplay with some pretty massive changes to the mechanics. The first of these is that in this version of the game, defeated enemies drop coins, and the more you collect in succession, the higher they go in value. However, like the Disco Men in Danganronpa, the coins bounce off the bottom edge of the screen and then head back up the way before disappearing off the top of the screen. Each coin missed in this way knocks your accumulated coin score down by 10 times the value that is added by each collected coin. You're going to generate a lot of coins in this mode too, so while one missed coin isn't too big a deal, allowing a whole stack to disappear can send you back to square one pretty rapidly. Scoop them all up without missing any for long enough though, and your score can zip off through the roof, and this change does a great job of making the overall experience a lot more engaging. Burst mode also features a revamped power-up and bomb system. Bombs in the base game are as standard as they come, although you can choose to set them to auto in another ease of play option. But in burst mode, you charge up a meter on the left of the screen, which when full can be unleashed in an extended kind of hyper attack which lasts as long as it takes your meter to drain. This both massively increases your power and turns all coins into super red versions, with these coins also replenishing your meter by a tiny amount, allowing you to collect more coins and keep going longer. The last big change is to the lives system, with the traditional 3 lives employed by the base game replaced by a health gauge. This drops significantly when hit, but can be brought back up in fractions by collecting floating green health pickups that usually appear near stage end. Each one might seem like a small amount, but that one thin bar could be the difference between your next hit ending the game or living to fight another day with a sliver of health remaining. While not addressing all the issues with the base game, Burst mode does do a great job of making things a bit more exciting and livening things up. You'll still feel super powerful throughout, and it doesn't really make the game much harder for survival, maybe even the reverse to be honest, but it does up the thrill factor, add a cool scoring hook, and is a great addition overall. It also comes with its own Caravan and Bancho modes, as well as an original mode and another mode called Muso mode, which soups up your ship to ridiculous levels, drops the coin system, and rewards you for playing higher up the screen. It's a flashy bit of fun and pushes you to play ultra aggressively, but maybe goes a little too hard in its over-the-top antics, with Burst mode remaining the pick of the ways to play. So when combined with Infinite Burst, Bullet Soul most definitely offers a lot of fun and a lot of ways to play. It might be simple, silly fun without too much in the way of depth, but the number of extra modes do a lot to compensate for that. In terms of presentation, you can see how bright and colourful things are, and in-game presentation is generally very polished. Despite being a little generic, the backgrounds look good with lots of detail, although you probably won't see too much of them most of the time due to the screen covering heavy fire emanating from your own ship. There are these 4 unique characters to play as, but despite the promising key art, not much is really done with them, and the game lacks any real consistent theme or identity. Professional, and like I said, very polished, but somewhat ironically, perhaps lacking in a bit of soul. The soundtrack is loud and rocking and quite perfectly fitting to the overall vibe of the game, and most of the sound effects are solid and meaty, although there are certain voice effects that can get overused and become a bit obnoxious. In terms of options, other than its vast array of modes, the game covers the basics without offering too much extra. The big minus here is the lack of online leaderboards, especially since these were available in past releases. And despite having a good looking Tate mode, the game doesn't adjust its menus to fit the screen in what can only be described as a bit of a lazy oversight. There are also achievements to be earned, with these covering a mix of easy, just play as character X types to get you started, through to far more challenging ones that will test any achievement hunters out there. All in all, Bullet Soul is a good game. It's not clever, it's not elegant, it's not always the most engaging, but it is for the most part pretty fun. It looks good enough, it plays well enough, but just lacks that bit of spark to really push it into the essential category. I would give it a 7 out of 10, and I definitely do recommend, if you are planning on picking it up, to either go for the physical version or the Infinite Burst variant from the eShop, as that release renders the base game alone kind of redundant. Let us know your thoughts on Bullet Soul if you do check it out, and thanks as ever for watching. See you next time.